Hey guys, good evening. I hope I'm pretty much audible as well as visible. Uh, okay, so just a quick hi or hello in the chat, whosoever is part of our lecture today, right? So, as planned, we'll be going towards deep of our further NumPy functionalities. So we'll be doing that. So we have been discussing about NumPy for quite some time, and we did discuss about a lot of other functions available. And in fact, yesterday we had a quick refresher session about all the functionalities which we have covered so far, right? So today I'm gonna finish a few more good functionalities, so which I believe comes really handy with your NumPy function, NumPy as a package, as an high-level API, right? So I'll be briefing out you on the other NumPy functions today. The plan is to cover the maximum so that we can have a closing tomorrow. But again, I'll try to be as quick as possible. Again, I don't want to rush into things. If anybody has, as always, any questions to put up in the chat, and then we'll take them accordingly. Cool. Again, guys, please mind my voice. I'm little unwell. I have a bad throat. So if any point of time, if I'm unclear, if my voice is not that audible to you, so just let me know in the chat. So I'll try to be as loud as possible. Cool. With this, let's start. So let's start with a quick round of introduction. So as you know, my name is Arpit Jain, and I'm a senior data scientist myself. I've been in the industry for almost 9 years now. Along with that, I'm also a motivational speaker. So I take career mentorship. I talk to students regarding their job, regarding their career, and other all opportunities they have and what they can pursue. So anybody has any question regarding that, so about the career, job, data science, anything. So maybe we can talk about that as well along with your course content. So I'm all ears. For me, every student is important. So, I mean, do not think that your question is bad or I've asked this, somebody else have asked this. So, if you have doubt, do put up your question. Cool. So, subjects, as part of our subjects in the playlist, Python, SQL, data science, that's what we are doing. Python, we already started about couple of months or 3 months back. So, we are into that. And today also we are doing things on NumPy. So, we'll be trying to cover as much of functions remaining in NumPy. But again, depending on our pace and our people understanding, so we'll be taking that. SQL also we started around I think a month back, so we are doing a lot of good hands-on questions in SQL. We are solving it mostly over the weekends. Data science also we started, but that's clubbed with Python again. So we started with visualization, so that's what we finished so far. But also the plan is to cover a lot of the functionalities, like maybe we'll be talking about NLP very soon, about texts and all, and then something into other statistical fronts. So a lot of things planned, so we'll be taking that one by one. But any suggestion in the topics or anything which you want me to cover, do put up the suggestion in the chat, and we'll try to take it in the content accordingly, right? Yeah. So, but before that, you have the code right in front of your screen, which is Python 10, and if you're going to use this code Python 10, you can actually, unlock yourself a free Relevel sample test paper. So what exactly Relevel is, and how things can be useful for you. So time for a quick promotion, guys. This is mandatory. Please bear with me for this. Many a times the candidates do miss out on the great opportunities. Could be due to multiple reasons. It could be like they don't have a better degree, or might be having a poor networking. They don't know the right people from the industry to call for the jobs. Also, the resumes with which they are applying not really standing out. So there are at least 100 other applicants for the same job. So your resume might be having some missing keywords, or might be some other issues which is beyond your control. So your resume is not standing out. Also, you're applying to like a number of jobs, but still not getting even a single interview call. Very practical issues. That's how this is. But again, to tackle these problems only, an Academy has launched this Relevel platform. This is India's first test hiring platform by Unacademy, which is helping you to get your dream job. And here, the job is purely based on your skills and talent, nothing beyond that. And you're not dependent on any sort of degree or any people networking for your job, right? So it's purely based on your knowledge and skills. So how does it work? So suppose, like for example, here you'll be asked to go through an assessment, right? So you will like multiple rounds of assessment. So the only expectation here from you is to get the best score out of that assessment, right? So if you're skilled enough, if you're knowledgeable enough, you should be able to get the good score, and that is the only criteria in which you can stand out from the crowd, and you can get the you can make the companies interested in you. So that's how it works, right? There are other certain benefits involved if you participate in the Relevel testing platform. I'll brief out to you on some of them. So at least 50 plus companies are hiring directly from the Relevel platform. Those includes the top startups and even the unicorns like ENY, Upgrad, Cred, Razorpay, Urban Company, and many more. Right, at least 1,000 plus open job positions across three portfolios right now: business, front end, and the back end development. Multiple roles also available within these. Good thing is completely online, so you're not supposed to be physically present anywhere. So you can just take this from the comfort of your home, right? Also, the best part is this is completely free. So you're not paying even a single penny to attempt this test, right? But the only expectation from you is, since you know there are multiple rounds involved, so you have to finish the entire test in a single day's time, and that day could be of your choice for sure. And the score, the score which you have got from this test will be revealed in a week's time, right? So again, there's a certain qualifying score. So 70% is the least minimum qualifying score here. So you have to score at least 70% to make your profile on Relevel. So the total is 1,000 marks. So 700 is expected from you. Anything on top of that is like it's going to be your advantage, right? Again, if you are not able to get the qualifying score, you can reattempt the test, but that can happen only after 30 days of your first attempt. Okay, so with this you will be also getting some exciting goodies, like if you are one of the top highest scorers in a particular category in a month, you'll be awarded with some goodies like MacBook, iPhone, and something else, right? So with this re-level, guys, you are in a unique position to invite interest from the companies instead of you hunting for your own opportunities, right? So if you have given the test, sit back and relax, and the companies will start reaching out to you once your score has been revealed, right? So that's how it is. It is easy. It is. Registering also is quite easy. Link is there in the descriptions. Once you go through the link, they'll ask you to choose the test of your choice. Three options to choose from: business, front end, and the back end development. Multiple roles, as I said, like the relationship manager, customer engagement associate in business development, Angular web developer in front end, backend engineer, software engineer, data engineer is in backend development. So whatever the area of interest of yours is, you can choose that particular portfolio, right? And based on that, the next thing which they will ask is you to choose the date of your choice, right? So the date when you want to give your Relevel test, right? So it should be, the slots are limited since it's a beta platform, so you can definitely book it fast. The last thing they will ask you to fill up the details of your demographics like full name, email ID, birth year, current state, and also along with your gender. So at last you have an option of promo code, so you can apply the code Python 10 here. So if you're going to use the code Python 10, you're going to unlock your bonus sample test paper, right? So as I said, so bonus sample test paper is again a replica of the actual assessment which you will be expected to go through post this, right? So definitely a very good, I would say more of your set, which is actually helping you to prepare for your actual test, right? So very, very good, the kind of repository for the codes, a repository for your questions. So you can definitely be well prepared for your test with this, right? So once you have created your account, you should be able to see this practice tab, right? If you have used the right code. So, and then if you have used the code Python 10, you're going to see this sample test paper side. Download the paper and then definitely just work around on that, and you'll be very much familiar with the kind of questions you should be expecting, right? So with this, your registration is complete. So please do register on the Relevel platform today. At least there is no cost involved in this, right? So you can at least try it for once. If you feel that you're not getting benefited, you can obviously take your decision later on, but at least for now you can try this for sure, right? And also, so we have an official Telegram channel, so you can definitely join this channel, and once you have done that, you should be getting all the schedules at one place, all the upcoming classes and schedules at one place for you. So also guys, as always, if you feel that you're getting benefited, please do like and share the video. So that's the least we can ask from you, right? Cool. So with this, we are now into a content slide. So we'll be talking about the NumPy functions. As always, anybody has any questions, do let me know that before I jump into the functions. Cool. Anybody has any questions from previous sessions or anywhere? Hi Siddharth, thank you for joining in. Cool. Again guys, I'm still monitoring my chat, so if anybody has any questions, right, so do put up your questions. So it's not like I'm coming here and giving you some story, right? So it should be like, if you're not able to understand it, just say yes or no. I mean, this that should be really fine with me. Cool. But anyway, let's start. Right, so you remember yesterday at last we were finishing up with nditer, which is nothing but my iteration over my arrays, right? I truly consider this as one of the really important parameters, very important functionality of your ND array. So I'll just give you a quick recap in this because we finished it. We tried to wrap it up quite quickly yesterday, right? And there are some good functionalities available again in this. So let's try to take this again for quickly 5 minutes and then move to the next set of functions we have, right? So like generally whenever we have any other sequence in place with us, like for example a list or a dictionary, right? So what we do, so we do some kind of iteration on top of that. Like if you want to access a particular element over all the elements over a loop, so we run some kind of a loop on top of that, right? Maybe a for loop, for example, right? And on for loop, so how you are accessing based on the indexes, right? So x of I, so x is a list, so x of I, where I is like all the nth element of your list, right? So x of I, then x of I plus 1, x of I plus 2, that's what you do, right? So that's how you access. But in the arrays, the way you iterate over an array, so basically if you have to access every element of your array, the only way to do that is using the functionality nditer. Okay, so nditer is actually giving you a functionality to iterate over your arrays. It's an efficient way of iterating over arrays, I would say. Yeah, indexing भी कर सकते हो, but it's an efficient way of iterating over arrays. So definitely nditer है, अगर मेरे पास कोई array है of say n dimensions, right? So उसमें dimensions तो multiple है. I can go in any order, right? I can go maybe all rows first and then the second row, the first row, the second row likewise, or maybe I can go the first column first, then the second column, second and the third column. So like for example, if I have this kind of information, so I'm just gonna unprint this for now. So now suppose, oh my bad, just a minute, import numpy smp, let's do that. This is done. So now suppose you have this array with you, right? So you have, it's a two-dimensional array, right? So now if you want to access all the elements of your array, there are two options. I mean, there are two ways where you can see this. First is, I mean, you want to see all the rows element first, like 20, 25, 30, 35 first, and then the second row element. Or you might be willing to see the first column first, like the 20 and the 40 first, then 25, 45, then 30, 50, and then post that 35, 55. So you have two orders here, right? And we already discussed about the orders. C type or the F type, right? So F is a Fortran format, F is your column major, and C is row major, right? So if you want to access all the elements row wise, you have to use C as an order. So like C, you know, C is for your row wise. If you want to access your elements by your columns, then you have to use order as F, which is Fortran type. So now let's just quickly understand this. So now can you see this? If I'm printing each element from this iterative element of my arrays, and that too row major, so I'm gonna see each element as like 20, 25, 30, 35. So this is my row major, right? Similarly, if I want to alter it using F, so I'll be having all the elements as column majors. So 20, 40, you can see this. Now I have 25, 45, 25, 45 here. Likewise for all the respective columns. So very two interesting ways. So the way you want to see, to look at your data as, right? So very, very important and interesting aspect. So you have to understand how exactly you want to see the columns as, right? So you can specify exactly what you want to see. So I mean, the same thing which I'm doing here. Also, right, so you can also before applying the nditer, you can do the computations before that also. For example, you've created an array just using the np.arrays functionality, right? And now you're doing a transpose function on top of that. Right, so basically you're transposing your data. Cool. And now if you call this iteration function on top of that, right, so now how exactly the data would look like, just uh, look at this now. So for example, I have this information here. So I have this A given here, so which is my this information, right? So I have, this is my same 20, 25, 30, 35. So now I have reshaped it cross, earlier it was what? 2 cross 4, right? So, and this is my reshape information. I'm reshaping it to 2 cross 4. And now I'm doing a transpose. So basically now B is converted to, from 2 cross 4 to 4 cross 2, right? So this is my transpose information now. So I have 20, 25, 30, 35 given as my columns, and then 40, and likewise I have two columns here. So 2 cross 4 has been converted into 4 cross 2. Cool. So I mean, just look at the rows and columns ka funda here. Okay. So now here, if you want to do the nditer, that's also possible, because if you want to manipulate your original array and then apply the iteration, is also fine. So it's just a plain simple logic. Is anyway possible for anyway all the other your sequential elements, still possible in arrays as well. So that is the reason why I'm showing it here. Cool. But the very interesting functionality here. So now it's the way you have accessed the data, right? So by using nditer, you have accessed the information. You have just viewed your data, right? Now, if you want to modify the existing array also, like for example, I have a data and I want to multiply everything with 2. So I want all the elements to be multiplied with 2 here. Still possible, right? Again, I can add a if statement here also. Like if I want to have a particular index to be modified, that is also possible, right? With some logical filtrations, we can do that. But also just for an ease here, for example, I have a certain array, and that array elements, all the array elements, I want them to be multiplied by 2, for example, right? That is also possible. But again, by default here is nditer is in read only format. Okay. So by default, if you do not specify the kind of the order of that, the kind of parameter, I would say, in that particular nditer functionality. So the kind of I would say feature it has, it's only in the read only format. The default value is the read only. Okay. But if you want to edit, if you want to modify the existing array, you have to use a parameter called as op flags, operation flags. And here you have to specify that it's not read only, it's read write. Okay. So then only this array which you've created earlier becomes iterable, becomes modifiable, right? So you can modify this array. So in this, I'm just for x in np.nditer, if I just print x, for example, so what it does, if I do print x here, right, so it will just print the elements, right? If it's like only the accessing the elements still. But now I can do this thing. So instead of printing, I am saying that now I'm using the ellipsis format. You remember the ellipsis indexing, right? Ellipsis is like all the 3 dots. 3 dot means all. So all of your elements. That's how we call this as, right? So x of ellipsis means x of all. I'm going to specify this as 2 cross x. I'm just multiplying each element by 2. Now look at this. So each of the elements is now multiplied by 2, which is coming it as 40, 50, 60, 70. So I'm just multiplying all the elements by 2. Still possible. So this is where you're going to see this thing as your iterable format. So your modification. So your arrays become modifiable if you use this operation flags as read write. Very interesting and important thing to understand, guys. Cool. Multiple things are still possible, because anyway, now we have nditer here. So you can use, so I've used another functionality here. So I have this nditer array here, right? And I'm calling each of my functionalities. So like for example, each of my functionalities here. And then I'm calling this with, I'm just printing a sentence by I'm separating each of the elements, separated by 1. So I have 2 NP arrays here. So you can see this. I have this one and the second one. And I'm just clubbing all the elements of my arrays in form of a loop, and then printing it with a separator of colon. So you can see this. I have a separator for colon. and then I'm printing it again all in a single line. So end is space means I want to specify that everything is printing in a single line with space. So that's what I'm specifying this as an end as. Cool. So this is very simple. So once you have accessed the element, so you have all the freedom to use whatever way you want to use this elements as, right? So if you want to modify it, if you want to use it for some other function, you can always do that. So, but iteration, accessing the elements from each of your array elements is what we are looking for from nditer. Okay, ये थोड़ा important है. So this is the only reason I repeated this, but again I'll be moving forward ahead. So always remember this, nditer is how the way you access your elements from your arrays. Okay, थोड़ा important है. Cool. ठीक है, अब थोड़ा next interesting functions पे जाते हैं. So we have certain manipulation functions also available. So manipulation, again, I'm manipulating my the entire array, right? So I have some set of array here, so which I have created. So I can manipulate those array in some or the other way, right? Maybe I can squeeze it, maybe I can stack it on horizontal basis, vertical basis. I can split it into two halves by using horizontal split or a vertical split. I can append multiple arrays, I can concatenate, I can insert an element, I can delete an element. So lot of multiple manipulation functions available under arrays, right? So we'll take it one by one. So there are a lot of lists. So I have not written each of the functions, but again I've tried to add the very good and the important functionalities available here. So I'll take it one by one. Cool. So now, for example, here you can see this. I have the first function as flatten. So let's see how flatten looks like. So flatten is nothing but, again, you are flattening your entire array. So now how exactly flatten works? So again, we have in flatten we have one argument called as order. So order, again, आपको पता है, there are only three types हैं basically, C, F and K. C is my row major, F is my column major, and K is random, right? So now look at this. I'll just show it to you by running it and then show it to you. So I have this array, so which is again a shape of 2 cross 4. So it's a two-dimensional data where I have two individual elements, and each sub-element has 4 elements within, right? So that's what it is. Now look at this. I'm now flattening this entire data into a single dimensional array. Can you see this? So now I have flattened it in a single dimension array. So by default, can you see this? It has taken row major. So can you see this? So the first 4 elements are the rows of my data, right? And the next 4 elements are 4, 5, 6, 7, which is the second element of my two-dimensional array. You can see this, right? So this is flattening. क्या करते हैं यार? Flattening मतलब everything को आप single line में लेकर के आ रहे हो, flatten कर देते हो डेटा को. So again, array को भी flattening possible है. So you're converting the two-dimensional data into a 1D array. Okay, so by default it takes order as C by default, but again also you can specify if you want to use F, like say column major. So now if I do that, so now can you see this? The elements would be, I'm gonna unprint this, the first one. So now can you see this? So now how my data has been flattened, the column major wise. So 0, 4, then 1, 5, then 2, 6 here, and then 3, 7. Cool. Again, interesting thing, guys, it depends on your usage, what exactly you want to do. So you can flatten your entire array in whatever way you want, right? So very simple, but again, useful manipulation function. Cool. So with this, next is transpose. So we already seen how transpose works in a previous example. So transpose को call कैसे करते हैं? .t, simple सा function है. .t अगर आप call करते हो तो transpose होता है. So एक बार मैं transpose को भी आपको run करके दिखा देता हूँ. Suppose I have created this array. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? So ये मेरा normal array है. So again a two-dimensional data. So इसका shape है 3 cross 4, right? So basically 3 sub elements and 4 elements within each of my elements, right? So अभी इसको मैंने क्या किया? मैंने इसको transpose कर दिया. तो मतलब rows जो data है वो columns बन जाएगा, and जो column है वो rows बन जाएगा. So अगर now, for example, suppose I'm gonna print a dot shape now here, right? And then I'm gonna do b is equal to a dot t, and now if I'm gonna call print the b dot shape. Now look at this. So now earlier the data was 3 cross 4. So I mean you already saw that. So that's how 3 rows and 4 columns. And now here, but in the b, if I'm gonna transpose that, the columns will become rows and the rows will become columns. So that's very simple, and that's what happens in my array also. So here the shape would become 4 cross 3. Simple है, transpose. ठीक है, next is squeeze. Squeeze क्या करता है? Very again interesting function. It basically removes your one dimensional entry from the shape of the given array. So जो आपका outer first dimension है ना, I'll show it to you actually. जो outer first dimension है, that will be removed from your array. Let me just show it to you. So let me print this x first. It'll be easy for you to understand. So now I have this x. So अभी मैंने क्या करा देखो, मैंने यहाँ पे np dot arrange करा है 9, बट मैंने इसको 2 डायमेंशन की वजह पे मैंने इसको 3 डायमेंशन कर दिया है, दिख रहा है? So I've given it 3 dimensions. So basically what does it mean? So it has 3 elements. I mean it is now a 3 dimensional data जिसमें 3 सब एलिमेंट्स है, 3 एलिमेंट्स हैं इसके अंदर, and sub के अंदर 3 sub elements. You can see this, so 3 sub elements, and you can see 3 brackets here, right? So basically 3D data है, correct? But again इसमें आप देख सकते हो definitely जो मेरा outer array है, outer nth dimension है, वो तो useless है, ऐसा कोई point नहीं है यहाँ पे, correct? So that's exactly what my y will do. Now look at this. So now can you see this? The outer dimension which is not useful, which is not making any significant change in your array, the lookout of your array, right? So that's gonna remove the one dimensional entry from your shape of a given array. Okay, so that's what squeeze does. So by default, if the shape of your array has been made illogically, and it is not making sense, it does not have any mathematical representations or some of that importance of that sort, so we can definitely squeeze that array into a required dimensions का array. But again अगर आप सोचो, अगर आप इसमें से ये वाला भी ब्रैकेट निकाल दोगे तो तब तो कोई सेंस ही नहीं बनेगा, ये तो अरे नहीं रहा, ये तो 3 डिफरेंट एलिमेंट्स बन जाएंगे. कूल, तो वो पॉसिबल नहीं है. सो दैट इज नॉट व्हाट स्क्वीज विल डज. Squeeze will remove out the one dimensional entry from where it will make the logical sense of the array. ठीक है? So that's what squeeze does. So आपके पास flatten हो गया, squeeze हो गया, transpose तो simple है. Cool. So now many times we also have multiple arrays with us, right? So I have array 1, array 2, array 3 till array n. So definitely most of the times you might need to concatenate these arrays also, right? आपको जरूर concatenate भी करना पड़ेगा. You concatenate का मतलब you want to add these your arrays together to have the bigger array. Like the smaller arrays को आप join करके एक bigger array बना रहे हो. Cool. अब suppose again इसमें भी फंडा आता है आपका access का. So for example if you have multiple arrays, so आप इसको rows wise add करोगे, column, so rows wise stack करते चले जाओगे या column wise stack करते चले जाओगे, so it depends, right? So how exactly you want to concatenate it? Even in Python is applicable, so you remember we are giving access as 0 and access as 1, so same thing is applicable in concatenate of array also. Okay, so here default is 0, so that means rows. So by default I'm concatenating it based on rows, so that's what if I'm not specifying any access, it'll take by default as rows. So 0 is rows, 1 is columns. ठीक है? So एक बार quickly check करते हैं. So let me print this A and let me also print this B for you. So अभी इसको नीचे कर देता हूँ. It's not required. No. So this is your first array A, 1 2 3 4, 2 dimension data है, and the second is 5 6 7 8. ठीक है? So ये मेरा 2 dimension का डेटा है, दोनों 2 dimension का डेटा है, A 1 2 3 4 and 5 6 7 8. And now what I'm doing is I'm concatenating A and B, and I'm not specifying any access. You can see this, right? I'm not specifying any access here. I'm just printing this concatenation of my A cross B. So by default, you know this now. So by default, it'll take 0. So it'll now concatenate is based on my axis, which is my row, right? So row में क्या है? So 1 2 3 4 था. I have 2 rows here. So now if I do it row wise का stacking, so I'll have 2 more rows, 5 6 7 8. So this is my output. So can you see this? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So now earlier it was 2 cross 2, so 2 rows and 2 columns. Now it has 4 rows and 2 columns. So the shape is 4 cross 2, right? So that is my shape of my arrays. So by default this is row wise concatenation, correct? Also you have an option to do this as your column wise concatenation. So in this you have to specify this function which is axis as 1. So another argument available here, you can specify on which axis you basically want to concatenate this as. So if you're going to use this, so now can you see this? So 1 2 3 4 तो आपको यहाँ पर है, but instead of appending it below this, now you append it on the right hand side of this. So here now this has been, the 1 2 has been extended to 5 and 6, and 3 and 4 has been extended to 7 and 8. So iska shape kya hai? Quickly tell me guys, what is the shape of my output concatenation if anybody is with me? So now here what the output would be if I print. So now let me save this as my concatenate. Cool. And now if I print this c dot shape, what should I get? If I check the shape of my C, so technically you can see this. So earlier it was 2 cross 2 for both of my A's and B's. Now in this case, I have 4 elements. Basically now I have 2 rows and each of the rows has 4 elements. So basically the number of rows is 2 and my element count is 4. So the shape is now 2 cross 4. From 2 cross 2 it has been modified to 2 cross 4. So this again order is very important. So I mean access is very much important. So do look out based on your usage and option. So you definitely concatenate it. So again, concatenate is very one of the important functions available in your arrays. So do look out based on your requirement. Cool. इसमें देखो again stacking. So stacking क्या है? I mean the resultant array which the input array are stacked. So I mean it's basically here you are stacking your multiple arrays. So again it's almost similar to what you're doing on concatenate. Just let me show it you again. So here now look at this. I'll show you the difference first. Okay, so here what you have to observe is, just now let me instead of doing this, let me print the shape also, so it will be more clear for you. So print, let me just save this as C for now, and then I'm stacking it based on my 0, so I'm going to print this as C dot shape, and then I'm going to save this as D, and I'm going to print this as D dot shape. Now this is very interesting. Now look at this. So the important thing to understand here is, guys, listen this very carefully. So in concatenate, you are actually appending, kind of adding up the elements of my arrays. So here, did you see this? If I do an concatenate on axis 1, so basically that is adding up the elements. So now the 2 elements ka array is converted into the 4 elements ka array, right? So 1, 2, 3 and 4 got added in a single element ka space, correct? So that is the reason why we are not adding up the third element of my array. So third element of my, I'm not adding up the dimension in my array. So I'm just adding up the element count, right? So that is what concatenate does. But here, did you notice? I just added one more dimension to my data. And what is that dimension? That dimension is basically my array which I have here. So the array which is being added, which is getting stacked up. So the third dimension is nothing but my stacked up data. So that data is getting stacked up as it is. Okay, it is not getting added in the elements, rather it is getting stacked up as it is. So that's why you are adding one dimension to your data. So that's how stacking works, right? Again, stacking, I have the axis, right? So I can specify the axis as 0 and 1. So you want to do a row stacking or a column stacking. But again, if you do not want to specify this axis, the same option is available with 2 more functions. So which is h stack and the v stack. So by default, you can expect h stack is nothing but horizontal stacking, and v stack is like vertical stacking. So stacking basically आप array को as it is उसमें append कर दे रहे हो. So you're not merging up the elements of my array. You are just stacking up your multiple arrays. Cool. So h stack में definitely आपको कोई access की जरूरत नहीं. So by default इसमें access 0 ही होगा because it's a horizontal what's it? Stacking up, right? So again, I have vertical stacking up, so you can also use this vertical stacking function. So similar thing है, axis के अलावा you can directly give h stack or v stack. Cool है, simple है. Stacking और concatenate में functions difference समझ में आ गया. इसके अलावा हमारे पास again interesting function है split. So अभी हमने क्या देखा अभी तक? हमने ऐड किया, हमने concatenate किया, the elements का concatenation, elements जहाँ पे merge हो गए, but and then उसके बाद हमने देखा stacking up. So stacking मतलब I'm just adding up the elements one over on top of other, right? So as it is. So that is what my stacking talks as. But here also we have a function called split. So split हमारे पास string में भी होता है, आपको पता है ना. अगर आप string में split करते हो तो you're getting a list by default and list of the split elements which we have. So likewise that split can also be performed on top of my array. ठीक है. So basically split के अंदर 3 major arguments है आपके. Array जो आपका array element pass करना है. So the element which you want to pass on top of my array, top of my split, which has to be split further. So that is what my array is called as, right? So 2 more further things which we need here, which is my indices, like the indexes which you want to split. So again, strings में जब आप split करते हो, तो you're splitting on some pattern, some character, right? So some specific thing which you want to specify that based on this I want to split the information, split the data, right? But यहाँ पे in your array there is no such सिर्फ एक क्या, अगर आप इनपुट एलिमेंट देखोगे तो कॉमा से सेपरेटेड होगा, अगर कॉमा पे करोगे तो सब कुछ इंडिविजुअल एलिमेंट्स आ जाएंगे, बट वो तो हमें चाहिए नहीं, करेक्ट. हियर वी आर एक्चुअली स्पेसिफाइंग द इंडाइसेस और द सेक्शंस ऑफ माय इंडाइसेस which I want to be separated from the original array. Cool. So again this is again one of the interesting things. So here we are specifying the index or the indices which I want to split out. Okay. So again look at this axis. Again we have to specify the axis. So by default we can look at the row axis or the column axis. So split आपको किस axis पे करना है, row wise करना है या column wise करना है, correct? So did you notice? So here suppose I'm going to print a here also, so it will become easier for you to understand. So I'm just splitting it based on my array a and the index 3. So here you can see this, I'm specifying on the third index. So this will be my first array, so 0 1 2 2 with the 3 elements. And now I have 3 4 5. So 3 4 5 as the second element, which is my again 3 split information, and then 6 7 8. So all of my information is having exactly 3 sub elements. Cool. So this is the number of the index values that I want to specify it. And again now I can also pass the list of indexes, the sections where I want to specify on. So the first is at the fourth element. So here you can see that the first split happens at the fourth element. So the first array will be having 0 1 2 and 3, and the second split happens at the seventh element, so which is 6, right? So this is my seventh element, which is 6, starting from 0. So the second would be 4 5 6, and the remaining would be 7 in a range. So this is my third element, right? So I can also pinpoint what exactly I want to filter out. So splitting is again purely depending on your usage, so whether you want to specify what exactly you want to split out. Also, if we have n-dimensional array, so you want to use particular on a row or particular on a column, so totally possible, right? So you can pass the list of indices or list or a section which you want to filter out from your input array. So that based on that you can use the split function. Cool. So split में again आपको पता है इसमें axis है, so we are specifying the axis. So by default is 0. So I have not given any axis here. It's anyway a one-dimensional array, right? So there is no column here. So it's anyway a one-dimensional array for me. So I'm doing it on the row wala part. So by default it is axis 0. But again, if you have n-dimensional data, so you can also specify that you want to split it based on a column or a row by giving axis as 0 for row and 1 for column. So that is again common for all the things, right? So for this, if you want to specify, also we have 2 more functions similar to my stack. So I have h split and I have v split. So again, you can always remember h is for horizontal splitting. So like horizontal splitting is again column wise splitting by default, and v split is nothing but my row wise splitting, basically splitting my rows separately. Cool. Isme we are not so by default again we know this. So we have for example this array for now, and I'm splitting this entire data on the axis of on horizontally based on the second index. So second row के बाद मुझे इसको specify करना, second column, h place for column. So second column के बाद I have to split this up. Cool. So here you can see this. I have this entire information 0 1 2 3. So is my first row. So this and then 0 4 8 12 are my columns. So I am specifying that after the second column, I want the splitting to start. So this is, I mean, from the second column, I want the splitting to start. So here, the first two columns, 0, 1, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 12, 13 will become my first array. So you can see this likewise, 0, 1, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 12, 13 will become my first array. And the second array would be the remaining one, 2, 3, 6, 7, 10, 10, 11, and 14, 15. Cool. So this is how my splitting of my arrays work. So splitting, again, if you specify the access on split, that's also fine. But also, if you don't want to use the access here, you can use the direct available functions hsplit or vsplit in order to not specify the access, and then use the splitting still possible. Cool. Likewise, if I'm using the same example here, but now instead of using an H split, I'm going to use V split. So V split आपको पता है vertical wise, so or row wise. So basically, I want to do the splitting. So इसमें क्या होगा? Again, I'm giving the index as 2. So now this entire 2 rows would be given into one separate array, right? So likewise, it has happened. So now this entire single array has been converted into 2 arrays, in which 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6 is my first array. You can see this. So 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7 is my first array, while 8, 9, 10, 11 along with 12, 13, 14, 15 is my second array. Cool. So again, guys, remember this. So इसमें थोड़ा सा important है split and stacking में we have an option of H stick or V stick. So basically H stack or V stack. So basically stacking up based on horizontal or a vertical basis. Similarly, splitting का भी same फंडा है. Access के अगर access आपको नहीं देना है 0, 1, so you can use directly H split or V split also. Cool. Generally इसको हम very oftenly use करते हैं V split and H split को. The reason is we always do not perform all the actions or whatever say आपको इस split V split के ऊपर nditer perform करना है using the operation flags as read write, right? So many times, so we are modifying a particular array. So what we can do here? So we can just split the data into the required half, whatever we want, right? We can specify that, we can give the sections also, you know that, right? So we can specify the sections. So we have the required section of my split array, and that on that split section I can perform the nditer with operation flags as read write. So I can modify that particular section, and then ultimately I can concatenate it. So concatenate क्या करेगा? V split में concatenate में access पे 1 कर दूंगा. So I'll be using, if I'm using V split, so I'll be getting the again the same array with the modified section only on top of my nditer. You're getting the logic. So that's why, so each of these single functions sometimes are used together, like in a multi-iter loop, and to do the job, right? So, but again, each of these functionalities has to be taken care separately. So V split combined with nditer and concatenate actually generally are more oftenly used in a practical world. Right? Got it? Cool. So that's how V split, nditer, and your concatenate can be looked at from a bigger picture, right? So still, anybody has any question, do let me know that. Again, guys, see, again, ये जो मैं बता रहा हूँ आपको, it's more of a simple, I mean, logics है जो यहाँ पे मैं बता रहा हूँ, right? अगेन आप जब तक इसको खुद घर पे सॉल्व नहीं करोगे, एक दो प्रॉब्लम नहीं सॉल्व करोगे उस पर, मतलब आई मीन कुछ क्विट एंड ट्रायल खुद से नहीं करोगे, सो इट्स मोर ऑफ लाइक अ थियोरेटिकल नॉलेज फॉर यू, राइट? सो इट डज नॉट रियली मेक सेंस. आई वुड रियली रिक्वेस्ट कि एक बार आफ्टर सीइंग दिस यू कैन ऑलवेज प्रैक्टिस एट होम, राइट? सो यू कैन ऑलवेज डू दैट. But also, again, we'll be doing a lot of problems. So I have planned a session on Friday. So this Friday we'll be doing some problem solving on the same topics. So I'll be picking up some questions and I'll be asking you to solve that for me. But again, before that, you should be knowing the concept at least. So अगर आप directly problems में jump करोगे, concepts पता ही नहीं है, तो you'll again have tough time there. Cool, ठीक है. So quickly next पे move करते हैं. But again, before this, I'm gonna take 10-15 seconds का break. If anybody has any questions, if they're not able to digest, do let me know that. Cool. So I believe people are fine. So again, if anybody still has any questions, so I'm always open to take up your questions. So do put up your question in the chat so we can take that. Cool. So let's proceed. So another function which we have is append, right? So append क्या करता है? Append again, I would say synonymical function है आपका of concatenate and stack. But how it is different, we'll see that. ठीक है? Append, concatenate and stack. आपके पास तीन different way of joining the arrays है. आप होप आप समझ रहे हो मेरी बात, राइट? सो इसमें आप समझ सकते हो. बट अगेन देखो, अपेंड का मेन लॉजिक क्या है, कॉन्कैटिनेट क्या था सबसे पहले. कॉन्कैटिनेट क्या है, यू हैव टू डिफरेंट n डिमेंशनल अरेज एंड देन यू आर जॉइनिंग देम. सो हाउ यू आर जॉइनिंग, यू आर एडिंग द एलिमेंट्स टुगेदर, राइट? सो अगर कॉलम वाइज कर रहे हो तो कॉलम वाइज एलिमेंट्स ऐड हो जाएंगे, अगर रो वाइज कर रहे हो तो रो वाइज एलिमेंट्स ऐड हो जाएंगे. सो यू आर एडिंग अप द एलिमेंट्स, राइट? सो दैट्स व्हाट कॉन्कैटिनेशन इज, राइट? स्टैकिंग क्या है, अगर आपके पास 2 डायमेंशनल का अरे फर्स्ट है and second is also another 2 dimensional का data, so like two different two n dimensions का data आपके पास है, and if you're stacking up, so basically that entire element will be one dimension and the other would be another dimension. So here क्या हुआ, आपने एक dimension पूरा add कर दिया यहाँ पे, correct? So अगर वो n है तो output will be n plus 1 dimension because you're adding up that entire space as a dimension together, and that two thing will be enclosed in the another outer enclosed dimension, right? So that is an added one dimension. n to n dimension add करोगे तो n plus 1 dimension हो जाएगा by default. I mean आप भी समझ सकते हो. If anybody has any doubt in understanding this, do let me know. So you are adding up the entire stacked up elements, so entire arrays together, right? So आप इसमें element wise adding नहीं कर रहे हो, right? So that is stacking. But append में क्या है? So I have again a list of I have an array defined, right? On that array I am appending some more elements which might not be the same of same nd array, same dimension का नहीं हो, जरूरी नहीं है कि same dimension का होगा. It can be of any dimension, okay? And then I'm adding certain elements to my existing arrays. So append में क्या करते थे? Append in list क्या होता है? So a list, suppose आपके पास 10 elements का list है. So अगर आप append कर रहे हो उसमें, you are adding extra one element on top of my 10 elements का list, right? So the output list will become 11 elements. राइट? तो जरूरी तो नहीं है कि 10 में आप 10 ही एलिमेंट्स को ऐड कर सकते हो, ऐसा तो नहीं होता, राइट? सिमिलरली अरेज में भी अपेंड सेम तरीके से वर्क करता है. सो अपेंड में यू आर अपेंडिंग सम वैल्यूज टू माय एडिंग सम वैल्यूज टू माय एग्जिस्टिंग अरेज. सो दैट्स हाउ अपेंड इज. अगेन गाइस, थोड़ा डिफरेंस समझना जरूरी है कॉन्कैटिनेट, स्टैक और अपेंड का, राइट? ये तीनों फंक्शंस बहुत फ्रीक्वेंटली यूज होते हैं, बस इसका यूजेस डिफरेंट है. इट्स द प्लेसेस इन एट व्हिच देयर यूज इज आर डिफरेंट, राइट? सो ऑलवेज ट्राई टू understand the practical way of thinking of this problem. Cool. मैंने इसमें multiple examples आपके लिए इसमें prepare किया है. I'll just show it to you one by one. ठीक है? अभी मैं सारे print नहीं करता हूँ. So now look at this. अभी क्या है मेरे पास? देखो. Again इसमें आपके पास ऑप्शन है, आप इसमें क्या क्या पैरामीटर्स हैं ये देख लो. वैल्यूज है एंड एक्सिस है. So again आप एक्सिस भी स्पेसिफाई कर सकते हो, किस एक्सिस पे आपको इसको ऐड करना है, राइट? आपको एक्सिस पता है 0 1. सो बाय डिफॉल्ट आप देखो यहाँ पे मेरे पास 2 डायमेंशनल का अरे था. सो 1 2 3 4 5 6 है. मैंने इसमें क्या किया, सर्टेन वैल्यूज को ऐड किया. सो वैल्यूज क्या है, 7 8 और 9 है, करेक्ट? मैंने सर्टेन वैल्यूज को इसमें ऐड किया और मैंने कुछ स्पेसिफाई नहीं करा इसमें. मैंने इसको नहीं बताया कि किस एक्सिस पे करना है, तो इसको नहीं पता. इसने क्या किया, सिंपल 1 डायमेंशनल का अपेंड कर दिया. सो 1 2 3 जो भी इंटायर एलिमेंट्स थे उसको फ्लैटन करके 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 का आउटपुट दे दिया. सो ये 1 2 3 और 4 5 6 तो पहले से थे, मैंने 7 8 9 इसमें ऐड किया है. कूल. सो ये मेरे पास स्टैक्ड अप हो गया, ये फ्लैटेंड हो गया इन्फॉर्मेशन. ये इंटरेस्टिंग आउटपुट है, ये ध्यान रखना. अगर किसी को डाउट हो तो मुझसे पूछना प्लीज, ठीक है? अब ना लुक एट दिस. अब मैंने क्या किया, इसको मैंने बता दिया कि नहीं भैया इसको फ्लैटन नहीं करो, इसको अपने तरीके से मत, इसको फ्लैटन करके मत दो मुझे, इसमें इसको एक्सिस वाइज अपेंड करो 0. सो मतलब आई वांट दिस टू बी एडेड एज अ न्यू रो ऑल टुगेदर, राइट? अर्लियर इसका शेप क्या है, यहां पे इसका शेप क्या, अगर आप देखोगे प्रिंट ए का शेप, तो क्या शेप है यहाँ पे, बस 2 क्रॉस 3 का शेप है, बिकॉज आई हैव 2 इंडिविजुअल सब एलिमेंट्स एंड ईच एलिमेंट के अंदर 3 एलिमेंट्स हैं, राइट? सो 2 क्रॉस 3 मतलब 2 रोज एंड 3 कॉलम्स. आपको बेसिक फंडा पता है, 2 रोज एंड 3 कॉलम्स, ठीक है? सो ये इंफॉर्मेशन है मेरे अंदर अरेज का. बट नाउ आई एम सेइंग दिस अपेंड, boss, do not append it like whatever you were doing, like the simple flattening of information. No, now I want it from the way of axis ka 0. So I want to specify that these new elements has to be given in the new row. So अगर आप यहाँ पे अब शेप देख करोगे, अगर ओ यार इसको चलो सेम पास कर देता हूँ, डॉट शेप अगर आप देखोगे तो आपको 3 क्रॉस 3 दिखाई देगा, बिकॉज नाउ the same information has now been added as a new row altogether, right? So this is an additional row. It is not flattened it, right? It has added it as a new row for me. Cool. कोई doubt हो इसको इसी में? Similarly, I can also pass in form of an a like access as one. It's totally possible. क्यों possible नहीं? बिल्कुल possible है. So मैं इसको print नहीं करता हूँ. Let me print the other one. So now in this case मैंने इसको अपना array की तरह ऐड कर दिया, as a column की तरह ऐड कर दिया है. अब मेरे पास 2 columns हैं, दो रो है यहाँ पे, और 2 रो के अंदर इसने exactly 2D array को ऐड किया है. So first रो में इसको 5 5 5 ऐड कर देगा मेरा first element, एंड सेकंड रो में मेरे को 7 8 9 ऐड कर देगा, तो 7 8 9 ऐड कर देगा. तो इसका शेप अभी क्या हो गया गाइस? क्विकली इसका शेप हो गया, अर्लियर मेरे पास क्या शेप था? 2 क्रॉस 3 था, मतलब 2 rows and 3 columns, राइट? बट इसका भी क्या है, since I have appended in the axis as one, so rows मेरे चेंज नहीं हुए. यार सिद्धार्थ ओके यार बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं. आई मीन क्यों नहीं कर सकते हैं, हिंदी में कर सकते हैं, बट वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट वी if somebody is not able to understand Hindi, so it should be easier for them also. But again, anyway, मैं थोड़ा सा emotional होके I generally switch to Hindi whenever I'm explaining more. So, but again, guys, I mean, if anybody is not able to understand Hindi, or if they want me to teach in Hindi, I'm okay with that. But anyway, but I still stick to English, and then I'll anyway I frequently switch to Hindi, right? So, but still, if anybody is here is not able to understand Hindi, please do let me know. So, I mean, I'm purely fine with English also. ठीक है. But again, coming back to the point here, इसमें देखो ध्यान से यार, अभी हमने क्या किया यहाँ पे, शेप है मेरे पास 1 2 3 4 5 6 और 2 rows and 3 columns, right? हमने स्पेसिफाई करा 1, so that means that my rows are not disturbed here. What I'm going to disturb is my columns, right? So the output rows will still be 2, which is I'm seeing it here. So still it has 2 rows, but these elements are what? Concatenated, right? So these are concatenated on individual access elements, right? So now it is more of 5 5 5 and 7 8 9 in my respective rows, right? Yeah, okay, sure, Tanuj. So it's, I mean, I'm fine with anything. So should not be a problem for me. ठीक है, cool. So अभी इसका शेप अगर चेक करोगे तो क्या आएगा यार? Print this entire thing dot shape. So now it was 2 cross 3, right? So now it is 2 cross 6. So again क्या है, आपको हमेशा ध्यान रखना है, 3 चीजें हमारे पास डेटा ऐड करने के लिए: concatenate, stack and append, right? So concatenate क्या है? Concatenate is the addition of my elements together. So you are joining up the elements, right? So that is concatenation. Stacking up, you are just I would say joining 2 arrays as it is. And if there are 2 n dimension का data you're joining, so the output element will be n plus 1, because it's like you're enclosing it into an outer array, outer dimension as well. So that's an n plus 1 output will come. Appending क्या है? Appending is just like you're adding some values on the existing array, and these values need not be the same dimension of my existing array, right? So that's the definition of difference between my concatenation, stacking, and append, right? So cool. So with this part we are done. Cool. Again, we have something called as I would say insert. So insert again very interesting है. इसमें 2-3 चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट है. So this function inserts values in input array along the given axis and before the given index. समझते हैं क्या है? Inserting is not done in place and the function returns a new array. So definitely this entire thing will be returning a new array for sure, because it's going to be an addition of a new element, right? And also, if axis is not mentioned, the array is flattened. So you know this. So by default, if you're not specifying the axis, that's basically you're gonna be telling me what axis you want to specify, whether it is 0 or 1. And if you're not specifying anything, you know this. So it's going to be flattening out. So it's going to be 1D dimensions, right? So now just quickly look at this, guys. So again, I've given you some important functions, some important examples. So now just look at this. Sure, Vandana, thank you so much. So we'll try to do with howsoever people are comfortable. Cool. So इसको देखते हैं एक बार. So अभी देखो हमने क्या किया, इंटरेस्टिंग है, अभी ध्यान रखना. So हमने इसमें स्पेसिफाई करा एक इंडेक्स. So this index here, so I'm first giving me I'm first specifying the array which I want to insert an element to. So this is my first element, which is my this two-dimensional array. So shape of this is 3 cross 2, right? So 3 rows and 2 columns, right? So now now I'm inserting the entire, so I'm inserting two elements 11 cross 12, 11 and 12 at the position 3, right? So third position I'm specifying that I want to insert this element. So by default append क्या करता है guys? Append उसके last पे end करता है, right? So append always adds up the element at the last of the sequence, right? But insert में, like the way insert works in list, it's similar way it works in arrays also. So we can specify a particular index where I want these elements to be added on. Okay? So I'm specifying here 3. So you can see this after at the third index it is being added. So that third basically fourth index hota hai, right? So I mean start with 0 in Python. So you have 11, 12 given here. So again notice I have not specified axis. So by default it will flatten out my data. So it will give you as one dimension data, okay, 1D data, right? So if I do not specify the axis, always remember this. Cool. On the other hand, if I'm gonna specify the axis here, so in this case I'm specifying 0. So basically the 0 is my rows, right? And I'm also specifying the first index of my row and given this value 11. But you know this, so I have two elements in my rows, right? So 1 and 2, but I'm specifying only 1. So now look at this, what will happen. So it will by default broadcast along the axis 0. So it will broadcast that particular value. So if this element is not matching up with the shape of my required columns, so this will get broadcasted to the n number of columns we have in the data. Okay, so by default. So I'm specifying the first index. So the second row is where I'm inserting this data 11. So if I do 11 cross 12, this is fine. So it is totally fine. So I'm specifying 11 cross 12 here. But if this inserted data is not matching up with the shape of my expected given array, so then it is going to broadcast it along the axis. Okay, so broadcasting में आपको मैंने ये बताया था how broadcasting works in arrays, right? So do remember that. So that's how I'm going to specify it. So I'm going to broadcast at the axis 1, which is row 1, and the elements 11, so that will be broadcasted, right? So similar way, if I'm specifying this 11 in the axis 1, so that's how it becomes. So now on the axis 1, so and the index 1, so basically the second column. So second column here where my 11 will be broadcasted. So all the rows will be added up with the value 11 at the second column. Cool. So insert is again you're specifying the index along with the value which you want to insert in your data, in your array. Cool. Insert में किसी को कोई issue है guys, please do let me know. Tanuj, again, I'm really sorry. This is a confidential property to Unacademy. I cannot do that. I'm really sorry for that. So, but you always have the video referrals, so you can always come back and look at the videos under my playlist. Cool. Okay, so coming back to my last manipulation function. So again, guys, remember, इसमें जितने भी functions मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, you are manipulating the structure of your array, right? So जितना भी पढ़ा, concatenate, flatten, squeeze, stacking up, vstack, hstack, split, insert. So all of this you are actually somehow playing around with the I would say outer appearance of my array, right? So manipulating your array, my array structure. So these are those of the good functionalities, right? So the last array manipulation function is delete. So again, delete is working the same way, right? So what exactly you want to delete? So delete is like you're removing certain part of your array, right? So it's like the function returns a new array by default because you're deleting from the existing array. So it's gonna delete, it's gonna return a new array with the deleted information, right? So as always, here also if you're not specifying the axis, it will the input array will be flattened by default if you're not specifying the axis. So axis is very important. So axis is important for both your insert, delete and append, right? So if you do not specify the axis in your insert, delete and append, it's gonna flatten out your data. Flatten का मतलब क्या होता है? वो 1D array data return करेगा as output. Cool. So again, so here delete क्या है? Delete में again आप specify कर सकते हो what exactly you want to delete, right? So the object which you want to delete, or it could be in slicer, or it could be in particular integer. So you want to specify what you want to delete, right? So now just look at this ones for now. So let me show the output and then show the compare the results. Cool. So I have the elements here. So I have this information. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I've created arrange ka 12 and the shape is 3 cross 4. So 3 rows, 4 columns. So this is my beautiful looking array. So now I'm specifying that please do delete the element 5. So here this 5 means the element 5. Okay. I'm not specifying any access. So remember this. I'm not specifying any access. So it'll go and find out the element 5 from my information. So what if I give 12 here? Definitely it'll give me an error because the input array does not have an element 12, right? It'll give me an error because it does not have an element 12. But if I do it like this, 5. So now it'll go and search the element 5. And did you notice the output array? It does not have 5 here. So 4 के बाद directly 6 है, 5 चला गया. And also it has flattened out my data. So it is giving me a 1D output, where the element 5 is not part of my array anymore. Cool. So that's where my array function comes. So that's where the delete is where. So if I'm not specifying any access here, this object, so whatever you're passing it in the function to be deleted, right? So that will be taken as your delete the element of the point of interest for me, right? So that element will be removed from your array. Cool. Simple, eh? The second is you're deleting the access. So basically you're specifying the access. So now look at the difference. I'll just print first and then show it to you. So now did you notice? So here now 1 does not mean an element. So it is not removing the element 1. If I'm specifying it as 1, that means that it is removing the entire index of that array, and it is removing the one index. So index number 1 from your columns. And what is that index? Which is nothing but 1, 5 and 9. So this is my first index, right? So the 0th index is 0, 4 and 8. 1th index is 1, 5 and 9. The second is like this, right? So my second column. So basically here 1 means the second column and the axis is 1. This is what I'm specifying, right? So there is a difference here. So if I'm going to specify the axis, it will take it as column ka index or row ka index if I'm giving access 0. But if I do not specify any access, it'll take this object as an element, right? It'll find out the element and then delete that element. So उसका दोनों का individual objective है. अब like example आपको बताता हूँ. Like for example आपको बताता हूँ. Suppose you want to delete 5 here, right? And you want to see this 5, right? Now you can anytime, so I have this 3, 3, 3, 2. So you can anytime again reshape this information, right? So again you can reshape it whatever way you want. So you can directly just apply dot reshape and then give whatever, like, you know, I'm sorry. So like say 3, comma 4. So it will not do 3 comma 4 here. I mean, because the shape is not satisfying this because I have 11 thing here, right? So it depends. So I can again reshape it further. So if you want to specifically delete a particular element, you can always do that, and then you can reshape it based on your requirement. If your requirement is to delete a particular element, you can always do it without any lookup issues and all that. But if you want to delete an entire column, an index of your column or an entire index of your row, then you have to specify the access. Then this element will be treated as an access, the index number or a row number or a column number. Okay, so that's the difference. So always remember that. Cool. Okay, so with this, we are pretty much done with the manipulation functions. Just एक बार quick recap कर लेते हैं. काफी interesting चीजें सीखी हमने आज. So unique छूट गया क्या? So unique कहाँ यार? I think मैंने unique का बनाना भूल गया हूँ. Okay, so ठीक है. तो unique I'll cover it maybe the next day. कोई issue नहीं है. So I'll take a note of this. I think unique का मैं करना भूल गया हूँ. Cool. Anyway, unique भी simple ही है वैसे, but again उसमें added नहीं है तो I'll add it. ठीक है. But anyway, so I'll just a quick recap. हमने क्या क्या देखा? Flatten, squeeze, concat. Flatten तो simple है. Flatten क्या करता है? वो ND array को 1D array में convert कर देता है. Simple है. हर एक जो भी n dimension का डेटा को 1D array में convert हो जाएगा. Transpose तो हमने पता ही, इसमें भूलने की भी बात नहीं है. Squeeze क्या है? अगर एनी अनवांटेड आउटर डायमेंशन का डेटा है, जैसे आपको मैंने एग्जांपल शो किया था कि वहां पे 3 डायमेंशन का डेटा था, बट द आउटर जो डायमेंशन है उसका कोई मतलब नहीं है, बिकॉज द डेटा इज नॉट दैट कॉम्प्लिकेटेड, इट्स वेरी सिंपल, इट्स जस्ट यूजलेस आउटर डायमेंशन फॉर मी. So if that is the case in your data, squeeze what it does, it will just filter out that unwanted outer 1th dimension and give you the remaining n-1 dimension as an output. So that's what squeeze does. Concat split, concat stack and append, आपको मैंने फिर रिपीट कर देता हूँ. concat एलिमेंट वाइज एडिशन है. आप इसमें जो डिफरेंट दो अरेज हैं उन दो अरेज को आप ज्वाइन तो कर रहे हो, एंड देन यू आर एक्चुअली एडिंग अप द एलिमेंट्स इन दैट, राइट. सो यू आर ज्वाइनिंग द एलिमेंट्स टुगेदर. So that's what concat is. Stack क्या है? Is just as it is a joining of my array. So अगर मेरा 2 dimension का data अलग है and then there's a 2 dimension का array separately. So if I add these two, so there'll be 2 different entities of 2 dimensions each. So and if we enclose these 2 different 2 dimension data, so definitely I have to give an outer dimension also to enclose it. So the output will always be n+1 dimension, right? So that's what stacking up does. Again, horizontal stacking or vertical stacking. Similarly split. So again, I have a particular array. I can split into 2 halves, maybe a vertical split or a horizontal split, maybe a column wise or a row wise. Again, possible. Append, आपको पता ही दिया मैंने, append, you are appending a particular element on that, right? So जरूरी नहीं है कि if I have n dimension का data, so I have to pass n dimension का elements only to add. I can add maybe any dimension का data. So if I for that I have to use append. So the append is similar to list का append which we have seen earlier. So that's how arrays append also works. So I can specify. So again आपको पता है अगर आप append करते हो तो append by default it adds at the last, right? So हमेशा वो अरे जहाँ पे भी आपका इंडेक्स होगा, जहाँ पे भी आपको अपेंड करना है, जो भी अरे में अपेंड करना है, so that gonna be appended at the last, whether it is row wise or a column wise append. So at the end of that array will be that the data will be appended, right? So it's always at the last. Likewise, I have insert. So insert में the flexibility is, it's again similar to your list का insert. So where you can specify the index, right? So index again आपको पता है. So again index is depends. You can give this index. अगर आप इसमें access specify नहीं करोगे, so वो figure out कर लेगा कि by default इसमें एक element का addition करना है, correct? वो flatten करके output दे देगा आपको. Again you can also specify again column के अंदर ऐड करना है या row के अंदर ऐड करना है. So it's also possible if you specify the access there. So that is also possible. The similar delete में भी है. Cool. So all of this is array manipulation functions. जहाँ पर आप you are playing around with the I would say a kind of schema for your array, right? So kind of outer lookout of your array. So you're changing the shape of your array. So all of this functionalities are somehow changing the shape of your array, right? So that's called as array manipulation functions. Cool guys? Quickly, yes or no? Any issues in this? Anybody has any issues in any of this function? Is it clear? Just a quick yes or no in the chat would be really helpful, guys. I hope people are really liking it, so maybe we can maybe extend it and we can do some more good functions. So I have some time, so maybe we can extend it. So just a quick yes or no if people are okay with that and you guys are able to understand what we're doing today. Okay, thank you so much, Pierce. Anybody has any other comments? I hope it's pretty much clear. So I don't think we have taken anything very critical, very difficult, I would say. So again, and again, I try to make it more clear to you. But yeah, cool. Thank you so much, Vandana. Also, so I think let's proceed. So let's take out a few more functions. So that's about your array manipulation function. No? So now we have some good function which is coming under your delete. So for your string ka functionalities. So now, as you know, so by default array क्या होता है? Array is a data type. ये बहुत ही frequently asked question है, guys. Again, remember this. I also take interviews in my organization some of the odd times. But in what we generally ask this very frequently ask this question. So can array have strings? So the answer is yes, absolutely. Why not? So arrays क्या है? Arrays is a data type which can hold a data of a single data type. So it's a homogeneous data, right? So it has to have a single data type together. So all out, it should be single data type, right? So that's the only expectation. But that data, does it mandatorily supposed to have a number? No. array can be of strings also. So I can have, because string is again a data type, right? So, and again, if all the array elements are of string data type, I'm still okay with that. What's the problem? No problem in that. Cool. So definitely array can also have strings, and that strings can have some of the functions. So I can apply some of the odd available functions on top of those strings also. Okay. So that's what we're trying to understand from here. Cool. So some of the good functionalities which are part of my string manipulations of my arrays are like addition, multiply, center, capitalize, title, lower, upper, to simple as split, split lines, strip, join, replace. ठीक है. सो अभी सिंपल है, अभी इसको हम एक एक करके देखते हैं. अब इसमें एक चीज बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, आप इसको कॉल कैसे करते हो, राइट? सो to specify that you're calling a function on top of my string, so you have to use a keyword char. Okay, so all of these functions are not directly available under NumPy. They are available under the char operator, operand of my NumPy. So NumPy np dot char dot add. So add, multiply, center, they all are the object of another super object which is char, and char is an object of NumPy. ठीक है, कोई डाउट है इसमें? सो ऑलवेज रिमेंबर दिस. सो इफ यू आर कॉलिंग एनी ऑफ द स्ट्रिंग फंक्शंस यू हैव टू यूज char. ठीक है, सो numpy dot char, एंड देन char के अंदर आपके पास वी हैव मल्टीपल फंक्शन, सब फंक्शन लाइक मल्टीप्लाई, टाइटल, लोअर, अपर, स्प्लिट. सो आई विल गो टू इट वन बाय वन. ठीक है, चलो नाउ लेट्स जस्ट लुक एट दिस. सो ऐड क्या है? सिंपल क्या है? ऐड आपका अब एलिमेंट वाइज स्ट्रिंग कॉन्कैटिनेशन करता है. Concatenation क्या है? Always remember, concatenation क्या था? Concatenation is adding the element together, right? So you are adding up the element. So now, after the output, it will not be two different elements. It will be a single element with the addition of those individual values, right? So that's how it is, and that's what addition also. It's like a concatenation of strings. So always remember, add is concatenation of strings. ठीक है? अभी मेरे पास क्या है? A, B, C है और D, E, F है. दो डिफरेंट एलिमेंट्स है ऑफ माय अरेज. अगर मैं इसको ऐड करूंगा तो सिंपल ऐड हो गया, एलिमेंट वाइज ऐड हो गया. तो इसमें एलिमेंट क्या है? ए बी सी डी एफ. कोई डाउट है इसमें? सिंपल है. अब सिंपल कॉन्कैटिनेशन ऑफ माय एलिमेंट्स है. सिंपल कॉन्कैटिनेशन. ठीक है. नाउ दिस इज इंटरेस्टिंग. कैन समबडी टेल मी what will be the output of this particular code if I run it? So I have hello and hi. I have two dimension array here. ठीक है. So the and then in this I have hello hi as my first, and I have abc xyz in the second sub element. Can somebody tell me quickly what will be the output here if I concatenate this? Quickly, guys. Any suggestion, any guess, guys? You can maybe try once. I'm okay to have a wrong answer. It's totally fine. If anybody wants to try. बिल्कुल यार, numpy बिल्कुल कमाल है. It's just like पता होना चाहिए क्या functions हैं, तो हम बिल्कुल कर लेंगे. तनुज, ABCDF तो नहीं है. I'm not asking about ABCDF. I'm talking about the second one. So forget about the first one. I have two elements, hello, hi in the first, and ABC XYZ in the second. So I'm asking if you're gonna add these two sub elements together. So what the output would be here? So that's my question. But again, let me show it to you. So the thing is, always remember, it's an element-wise addition. Okay. It's an element वाइज एडिशन. तो यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? आपका हेलो जो हो रहा है वो ऐड हो जा रहा है विथ ABC. ओके, एंड हाई इज गेटिंग अपेंडेड विद फर्स्ट एलिमेंट इज हेलो, सो दैट इज अपेंडेड विद ABC, एंड हाई इज विद XYZ. वेरी वेरी वेल आंसर्ड वंदना. मैंने एक्चुअली यहाँ पे एक ब्लाइंडर स्पेस दिया हुआ है, सो दैट इज द रीजन वाई हेलो और ABC के बीच में एक स्पेस आ रहा है. अदरवाइज योर आंसर इज एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. अगर यहाँ पे एक ब्लाइंडर स्पेस नहीं होता, व्हाइट स्पेस नहीं होता, तो इट वुड हैव रिटन हेलो ABC टुगेदर. So very well said. Yes. So ये element wise addition है guys. Always remember. So जो element का position होगा, that is very important. So ये is gonna be an element wise addition. ठीक है? So that is the reason why I gave you this example. So it's gonna be ABCDF in the first, where I have two elements का concatenation by simple, flatten हो जाएगा data. But here it will be element wise concatenation of the index values. So that is very important. So that's how my array concatenation of string works, and through that to function of add. ठीक है? Now I have a function called multiply. Multiply बहुत simple function है. सिंपल कुछ नहीं है, is gonna perform the multiple concatenation. Multiple concatenation क्या होता है? So आपका hello है, तो hello will be concatenated 3 times, right? Again यहाँ पे एक blinder space है, मतलब ऐसा white space है. If you're gonna do it multiply, so you're gonna have hello hello hello. ये सिंपल आपको पता है, आप लिस्ट में भी क्या करते थे, hello क्रॉस 3 करते थे तो सेम ही आता था, राइट? स्ट्रिंग में भी सेम ही करते थे, सेम ही आता था. So it's the same thing. So basically now this individual element is now being treated as a character, is now being treated as a string. And how are you going to treat this as a string? Using the super object, which is char, right? So super object of numpy is char, and under the super object I have multiple sub objects like add, multiply, join, replace, and all that. Cool. So always remember to use char as a super object for your numpy, and then if you call any function, this function will be treated as working on a string. So that's how numpy is. Cool. ठीक है, अभी क्विकली नेक्स्ट पे चलते हैं. सेंटर. सेंटर क्या है यार? सेंटर भी एक्चुअली बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग फंक्शन है. सेंटर ये एक्चुअली ना कोडिंग में बहुत फ्रीक्वेंटली यूज होता है. सो सपोज इफ यू आर डूइंग प्रोडक्शन का कोडिंग ना, एंड यू इफ यू वांट टू प्रिंट सम रियली cool looking output, right? So from an array, so that is where center is used. Center क्या करता है ना, वो padding करता है. So it actually does a padding. So suppose I have a particular character, right? And I want to print like star 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 value, then star 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 star. So like 4 stars at the end and then 4 stars at the right. So you put a title like this, right? Or maybe a hash 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 a value, and then hash 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 your another at the end, right? So you're gonna frame up your, and then maybe you can add up a straight or a hyphens or a anything or underscores, right? So whatever it is, so it's gonna add up padding to your particular value. It looks very cool. So when you print up anything, when you are doing some kind of productionization of a code, right, in the logs. So when you're printing some logs in your data, right, so you want to have a clear distinction that okay, after this is a certain other section. So that's how you can do that in arrays. So that's how it looks, right? So now if I have the value hello, and I'm gonna have 20 paddings to be done. So basically it's gonna be equally dividing into left and the right pads, and the field character is star. So can you see this? Now it has 10 stars on the right and 10 stars on the left. So it's like more of a padding function, right? So very cool function for the logging purpose specifically, right? So I very generally use this on the logging. So whenever I have a logging on top of my arrays, right? So whenever we create a logs, so this will create a very cool, very distinctive feature. Like, you know, after this, there's a certain other section, right? So I can loop it over the number of elements. So I can again call this over an nditer, and then that element I'll be passing it over the value here, and then I'll be doing it whatever way I want, right? So that's how the center also works. So very cool thing to use it in terms of your smart printing objectives of numpy characters. Cool. Hello Shubham, thank you for joining in. Cool. So now again I have interesting functions. Capitalize. So capitalize आपको पता है, simple है यार, कुछ नहीं होता है. Capitalize क्या करता है? ये आपका first character जो है, the first letter of your word will be capitalized. So by default आप जब भी कोई sentence लिखते हो, so whenever you write a sentence, the first character of your entire sentence is a capital letter, right? So that's how it does. So if you have any sentence, any value to be passed on top of my as part of my string, and if you're gonna call capitalize on top of that, it's gonna highlight, it's gonna make the first letter of your string as capital letters. Very simple function ही है. तो आपको देखिए hello मेरा small था यहाँ पे, so I have H is capital here and everything else is small. So it's like following the English nomenclature, like capitalizing the first letter of your sentence. So that's how it is. ठीक है. Now I have title. So title में क्या होता है यार? Again simple basic हिंदी English का logic है. So title में क्या करते हो आप? Title आप जैसे कुछ भी title लिख रहे होते हो, like if you're adding any name to your document, right? So, so here you have, like for example, the name is say Game of Thrones, for example, right? So I have G capital, O capital, and T capital. So whenever you'll be writing a title, you're writing it like this, right? So G capital, G A M E, and then O is capital, then F, then T is capital, then Thrones, right? So that's how it is, right? So likewise in title the same thing. So what it does, instead of capitalizing only the first character of an entire value, is gonna capitalize each and every first character of all of your elements, all of your words, individual words. So I have two words here, right? So hello and world. So H भी capital हो जाएगा, W भी capital हो जाएगा. Simple है. Again logic simple है, but simple याद करने के लिए easy है. तो title का हमेशा क्या है, हर एक word capitalize करेगा. Capitalize का मतलब single words capitalize करेगा. ठीक है? Okay, I have one question here. Vandana is asking, what does the 20 denote here? Good question. So 20 is nothing but my number of paddings I want to add. Okay. So when I specify 20 here, so I'm saying that I want to add this filling character, which is star, 20 times. So I want to add 20 of such characters together. Okay. So here I'm saying that the first, so it by default splits into two halves. So the 10 half, the first 10 would be given to the left side padding, and the second 10 would be given to the right side padding. Okay, so यार देखो शुभम, आई थिंक आपका क्वेश्चन मैं समझ गया आप क्या कहना चाह रहे हो. यू कैन टेक्निकली डू दैट, बट अगेन द थिंग इज वी आर कॉलिंग दिस एंटायर थिंग ऑन टॉप ऑफ माई अरेज. ठीक है, सो कैपिटलाइज अभी स्ट्रिंग नहीं है यहाँ पे. रिमेंबर दिस, आई एम स्टिल, दिस इज अगेन माई numpy array. Okay, still my numpy array only. This is an element of my numpy array. ठीक है. So if you want to specify a as Shubham, so like for example a as Shubham, so you want to first specify that this is not I mean Shubham is not a string as it is. It's basically more of my array Shubham, right? And then on top of that you can specify capitalize, because and you can directly cannot call a dot capitalize, because capitalize has to be referred as numpy dot char, because capitalize is a sub object of my super object. And what is my super object? Which is char, and char is belonging to my numpy. Okay, so always remember this. So this is not again a direct string, is more of a numpy string for me. But again, if we're just talking about capitalize also, it can still work. So I mean, even for the string also we have that function available. But here in this case, we're talking about numpy array ka string. So that's what it is. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much, Shubham. Yes. So it's more of a numpy array, है ना, numpy array का element. But again, अगर आपका question में समझ गया, अगर if you still have that string ना, तो still string के ऊपर भी capitalize call कर सकते हो, बिल्कुल कर सकते हो, क्यों नहीं कर सकते हो. But here we are specifying about just numpy का characters, because numpy can also have the strings, ना. So strings, how you can work on the strings which is part of my numpy. So, and you can always use this using this super object which is char, and you have to specify this char to treat the element as strings. That is mandatory. ठीक है. But a good question. So अभी again let's coming back to our function. So हमें capitalize देख लिया, title देख लिया, simple है, title तो very simple है. So like for example run कर देता हूँ. So if I have this, so all of the first characters of the individual words will be capitalized. So H is capital, again H is capital, A and U and all that. So individual जितने भी words होंगे उसके first characters वो capitalize कर देगा. So that is title for you. Cool. Again, lower है, upper है, very simple function guys. I'll just take a second here. So lower क्या simple, it'll convert the elements into lowercase by default, and here upper क्या करेगा, convert the elements into uppercase. So for example, I have these things here. So I have hello world all in caps. It's gonna return the hello and world individually in smalls. Okay, and here I have just a single element hello, so which is now again here as in hello, which is a single element and all lowercase. Okay, likewise hello world small में यहाँ पे upper कर दिया तो वो सारे upper हो जाएंगे. Simple है, lower upper में ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं रखा है. ठीक है, इसको करते हैं split. String में we are very oftenly using split. So in our list or in basic split का function जो आप strings में आप करते हो, split बहुत oftenly use होता है, right? So split क्या करता है? Split क्या है? By default it is, now we are specifying that the string which is again part of my numpy array. Okay, आपको पता है split again आप directly string पे भी call कर सकते हो, and it will return your list, right? But here I'm specifying about numpy strings. Okay, so I have to specify .cat because it's a super object, and split is part of my super object. So np.char.split, and I'm giving this how are you. Now look at this, what it returns. So again यहाँ पे output same है guys. The output is again in form of a list. Okay, so always split returns. I will add this one more sentence here. So yeah, anyway I've written it. So yeah, return a list of words. So basically always remember it's gonna be output. Output will always be in list. Cool. So always remember. So every time whenever you run a split, right? Again, a very frequently asked question. Okay, the split will always return an output in a list. So the output of the split will always be a list. Okay. So now here, did you realize I have not specified any separator? So I have not specified on what particular character or pattern the string has to be split upon, right? So by default, it has taken the space as my character. That character which it has taken by default, that is space, right? So now here I have given space. So if I'm not specifying anything, it has taken by default as space, right? So that's how it is. But again, on the other space, I can also specify what character, special character I want. For example, I've written this, I love my India, and this entire thing is separated by a comma. So I can also specify a separator, a particular pattern on which I want the splitting to happen. So don't want the default, which is space. I want a particular pattern, which is say comma in this case, to be specified. So now in this case, comma के अगल बगल जो भी होगा, it will be separated at a separate element of my list. So I have I as a separate element, love as my separate element, and then my in India and all that. Cool. So similar working है जो आपका string split में होता है, ठीक है? But again, here we're talking about a numpy string. So I'm calling a super object char first, and then calling the object split. Cool. Cool. Split lines. Okay. Many times, I would say many times, whenever you have a big doc, right? Big document. So in that document, you have multiple lines, right? So you want to specify that अभी line के बाद को break करना है, right? So generally, जब आप coding front में देखते हो, so all the enters of my document are represented as /n. So I think Shubham ने भी same चीज mention किया हुआ है, /n, right? So /n is what we call as basically a line break. लाइन ब्रेकर. अगर आप कोडिंग जब करते हो ना, सो यू गिव /n एज अ लाइन ब्रेकर, बेसिकली न्यू /n और न्यू लाइन बेसिकली होता है, ठीक है? आई मीन मोस्टली /r भी होता है कभी कभी रिकर्सिव, बट इन /n /r कुछ भी है. सो दीज आर माई बेसिकली बाउंड्री कंडीशंस फॉर द न्यू लाइन्स. ओके, सो स्प्लिट लाइन्स क्या है, आपको स्पेसिफाई नहीं करना पड़ेगा इसमें. आपको यू नॉट स्पेसिफाइंग एनी सेपरेटर. सो बाय डिफॉल्ट इसमें सेपरेटर /n /r या दोनों का कॉम्बिनेशन कुछ भी ले लेता है. सो वट एवर योर लाइन सेपरेटर इज, राइट, wherever there is a new line coming up, so this is where you specifying that उस data का वहां से उसको break करना है. So here आपने separator comma दिया या by default space लिया, right? But in this case split lines separator by default it will be /n or whatever line breaker you have in your code, right? So now for example in this case I've given by default as this /n, so just to specify this. And now in this case this is what my output would be. So hello would be one, and then how are you would be my second, right? So likewise I have a /r also, that is also possible. So I have again hello and how are you and all that. Okay, so np.cat.split I am good. Hello world. क्यों नहीं, बिल्कुल शो करते हैं यार. चलो let's try that. np print कर देते हैं इसको. print I'm gonna print np.cat.split. and split आपने क्या बोला? I have two sub elements. I am good and separated by separator क्या है यार आपका specify space है, right? If I'm not wrong. मुझे एक्चुअली मैं फोन में देख रहा हूँ तो मुझे थोड़ा क्लियरली दिख नहीं रहा है. Okay, so I think you have given I am good, and then you have said क्या लिखा आपने? hello world लिखा है. Okay, so hello, for example hello, and then hello के बाद क्या है? space world है. Okay, world. cool. I think मैंने आपका क्वेश्चन सही प्रिंट किया है, सही लिखा है. specifying separator as space, right? ठीक है, space कर देते हैं. दिख रहा है? देखो अभी इसमें क्या है, आपने इसको आपने 2D array भेजा है. देखिए मैंने सही प्रिंट किया था. सो इसमें 2D array बेसिकली. सो नाउ आई हैव टू डिफरेंट एलिमेंट्स हियर. सो डेफिनेटली ये एक सेपरेट एलिमेंट है एंड दिस इज अ सेपरेट एलिमेंट, राइट? सो हियर यू आर सीइंग दिस first thing is my list output. So this first element of my array has been given a first priority. So this has been split on the base of the character space. So I have my first element as list, right? And the second element is hello world. So this is again a second list, but this entire thing is actually a 2D array for me, right? So the end output, if I want to see, is like an array with a two separate list elements. Cool. Shubham, any questions here? ठीक है, बड़ा किन अच्छा क्वेश्चन था आपका यार, गुड वन, यस। ठीक है, ये लास्ट 3 फंक्शंस है, क्विकली कर लेते हैं आज एंड देन विल वाइंड अप। स्ट्रिप क्या करता है यार? स्ट्रिप बेसिकली अगेन क्या करता है, अब ये कोई आपका लीडिंग और ट्रेलिंग कोई स्पेसिफिक कैरेक्टर्स होगा ना, तो वो को आई मीन इसको वो ट्रेल आउट करता है। लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल, I have this element. I'm just gonna put this for comment for now. So now look at this. So I have this element Arpit Jain. This is my value, right? So I have Arpit Jain is given here, and I'm specifying the character A. So I'm also specifying what I am supposed to strip, right? So I want to strip out A. So if I have A anywhere in the leading as a leading or the trailing character, so अगर start में कहीं पे भी A होगा और end में कहीं पे भी A होगा, तो वो उसको स्ट्रिप आउट कर देगा। इसका आउटपुट क्या होगा? सो हियर सिंस आई हैव ए ओनली एट द स्टार्ट, इज गोना गिव RPIT JIN. Okay, what if I have this? So Arpit Jain A at the end also. So in this case, both the start and the end will be removed. Okay, so strip is nothing but I'm stripping out a particular character at the trailing or the leading side, right? So and specifying the character also. Cool. So I can also give two characters here. For example, now look at this. So instead of giving A, I'm giving AN. So इसमें AN क्या है? It is not taking A and S together. So ऐसा नहीं है कि वो A, जैसे यहाँ पर आपको AR है, right? AN नहीं है, तो ऐसा नहीं होता. It is taking as A also and also N. So either A or N. So अगर A भी होगा तो वो भी जाएगा, N है तो वो भी जाएगा. So in this case, both I have A as the leading and N as the end. So in this case, A and N both will get removed. So the output will be RPIT and JAI. Cool? Clear? Again, a third way of writing the same thing. So I'm defining it as a 2D array. Defining it as an array object. So sorry, a list of my object here. So I'm specifying A and N separately here. So in this case, the first element would be where my A would be gone, and the second element would be where N would be gone. So I have the output array would be having two elements in this case. The first where the first element will be gone with A, so either A at the leading or the end position, and the second would be character N either at the leading or the ending position. Okay, so 3 ways you can actually specify this strip. Cool. Again, nothing is more of you're removing out the trailing or the leading characters based on the character you're passing up here. ठीक है? Likewise, we have join. So join is simple. Yeah, join is में क्या है? So you are joining up two different strings based on a special separator. ठीक है? So इसमें एक चीज इंटरेस्टिंग है. अब join में जैसे generally आपका कोई भी function होता है, you are giving the value first, the elements first which you want to join, right? But in this join, you are specifying the separator first and then giving the elements. So that's the only one cool difference which I generally observe. So in this case में क्या है? So I have 3 elements here, A, B, C. So in this A, B, C को आपने किससे join कर दिया? Colon से. So all of these individual elements are now joined together using this separator which is colon in this case. ठीक है? अब now what if I have multiple elements? So multiple elements है, for example मेरे पास 2 elements हैं यहाँ पे A, B, C and D, E, F है. So now I want colon to be given to A, B, C and hyphen to be given to D, E, F. Also possible. So I can give both of them as separators here as a list. And then also you can see this. So I have ABC का colon से separated है, and DEF जो आपका hyphen से separated है. So again, it's more like you're joining up the elements with a particular. So instead of splitting, you're joining with a separator. So one or the other replica part of my split. Cool. ठीक है. Replace interesting है. So replace similar जो string replace होता है ना? So जो आपका string replace होता है similar. I mean array में भी same replace ही है. So you're replacing a particular word with something else, right? So the syntax is again the same. So the first would be the string which you want to be worked on. The second is the element which you want to replace, old one, and the new one at the end. So old first, new second. So पहले यहाँ पे क्या है, is को मुझे is को replace करना है was से. So this is what I'm trying to do here, right? So here you can see this. If I'm just running it like this, so I have earlier it was he is a boy, he is staying in block B, for example. So now it has been converted to he was a boy and he was staying in block B. Simple as string ka replace. But again, the only thing is if you're calling anything on top of my array ka syntax, array ka string, so you have to call this super object char, then only you will be able to call the multiple sub objects from it. So, but again, the working principle of all of your functions is almost similar, right? So like the way, but it's just a way like how you're calling those functions. Cool. So with this, guys, I'm pretty much done for today. So we can wrap it up. So it was a good lengthy session. So I hope, and the only reason people we expressed is because people were, quite interactive. So I was pretty okay with that to stretch. Thank you so much, guys. So anybody has any queries, do put up in the chat. We can take it up, or it's already a bit late, so I can give your evening back. I still have, so I can give still some couple of minutes. So if you have any questions, so I can take up those questions. But I believe this made sense, right? So we had some good functions discussed today. We discussed about manipulation, and we discussed about some of the strings ka function also, right? So very good functions. I think I'm left with only few functions. So tomorrow's session would not be that too lengthy. So tomorrow's session we should be able to wind up soon. So we don't have much functions left. We have covered almost, I would say, all the good functions in NumPy. And trust me, NumPy is इसके अलावा NumPy में ज़्यादा कुछ है नहीं, है ना? NumPy generally what I have observed is people are a bit confused with arrays, है ना? So array से थोड़ा सा complexity से आ जाता है. But array का functionality अगर समझ जाओ ना, arrays बहुत ही interesting है. So you can just use arrays for your regular mathematical computation work also. It's very fast. क्यों फास्ट आपको मैंने बताया था, मेमोरी ऑप्टिमाइजेशन इसमें बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है numpys में. So that's again one of the most important reasons. Cool. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Shubham. Thank you, everyone who's part of the chat. Let's see you tomorrow, same time, 9 p.m. So we're gonna finish the remaining functions. And trust me, guys, I'm not left with many functions. So tomorrow's session will not be lengthy. I'll try to wind up early if possible, so that I can give your evening back. Cool. With this, let's wrap up. Thank you so much, guys. Again, let's see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. with the remaining functions. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Thank you, Wanda.